zu laut jetzt. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Vihare Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Vihare Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Vihare
Shima His Divine Grace, His Bhakti Vedanta Bhakti, Buddhi Vaishnava Vindhya, Never Charges Thakur Gita, Prem Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasa Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Shri Radha Krishna Govindam Kundradha Vrindan Gijay, Vrindavanam Gijay, Maturadam Gijay, Navritam Gijay, Jagannapuridam Gijay, Gangamai Gijay, Yamunamai Gijay, Tulasi Devi Gijay, Bhakti Devi Gijay, Samaveda Bhaktan Gijay, Oda Pramanandi. All glories to the Summer devotees, all glories to the Summer devotees, all glories to the devotees, all glories to Sri Sri Gauradesh, all glories to Sri. So, as usual, we will read from the Transcendental Diary. Travels with His Divine Grace, Sri Bhakti Vedanta October 1976 to November 1976 by Hari Sadhu Das Prabhu. So, is there any translation to Russian or what's going on here? Huh? Huh? And you don't have a book? Oh, they have it. Okay, so Parvadis and Vrindavan, as far as it says here. Mahavira came to see Srila Prabhupada about the temple prasad. He explained with some consternation that several devotees are complaining because the daily fare of khichdi and chapati for breakfast and rice, dal and chapati for lunch, with an occasional sabji. Their main complaint seems to be about the lack of variety and the absence of fruit. Being new to India and also being satisfied himself with the temple menu, Mahavira wasn't sure what the standard should be. So he requested that Srila Prabhupada advise him. Prabhupada wasn't too concerned. He told them, humans are grain eaters. If they want to eat fruit, then let them just eat fruit only. Otherwise, just leave it the way it is. November 20th, 1976. Yesterday's Srimad Bhagavatam verse described how Lord Rishabhdeva adopted a mode in which he was lying on his own stool and urine, just to avoid the association of ordinary persons. But today's verse 5.5.33 made it clear that even this act of the Lord was glorious, because Lord Rishabhdeva remained in that condition. The public did not disturb him, but no bad aroma emanated from his stool and urine. Quite the contrary. His stool and urine were so aromatic that they filled 80 miles of the countryside with a pleasant fragrance. There was a comment in the Bhagavatam, 5th canto. Prabhupada was speaking about this issue. And he said sometimes people say, how can he be an incarnation of God if he does like that? He lays down on his stool and urine and all this. And then Prabhupada explained, just like it's mentioned here, that there was a big difference. Rishabhdeva was a transcendental personality, an incarnation of Krishna. It's a very different kind of class of people, kind of persons. And Prabhupada gives the example here, that his stool and urine was very aromatic. So nobody was disturbed by his urine and stool, but actually everyone was kind of impressed. So made it clear. Srila Prabhupada got off to a humorous start. So here is incarnation of God to Shakti. Now there are so many rascal incarnations. It is possible to pass stool and make it Surabi. Is it possible? So you can ask these rascal incarnations that pass the stool here. With everyone laughing, and he himself chuckling, he continued, "Let us see first of all, then we shall accept you, practical. We are fools and rascals. We want practical tests." Similarly, broadly, he told us that we have to accept the statements of Shastra, that if the incarnation of God passes stool, it is pregnant. He can do it. That is God. According to Shastra, even the stool of the cow is so pure that it makes whatever it comes in contact with pure also. In Indian villages, he told us, still they use cow dung for smearing over the floor. It becomes very nice, fresh and purified. That is the junction of the Shastra. That cow dung is pure. So if by the will of Krishna, by the arrangement of Krishna, even an animal stool can become so purified, what to speak of Krishna's stool? Actually, cow stool is used to purify places. We are supposed to clean the kitchen and the altar and everything with cow stool. That's the standard normally. Of course, here it's very difficult to get cow stool. Cows are so isolated and it's difficult to get the stool of the cows. But that is what is recommended. If you really want to purify a place, you use cow stool to purify it. Each morning, as we greet the deity form of the Lord, we sing verse 532 from Brahma Samhita. Prabhupada cites it to remind us of the potency of these forms and the vast difference between the Lord's body and ours. Just like generally we find a person is born from the yoni or the womb. Therefore, we call it Sarva Yoni. But Gauradesh Vishnu, he did not take any help from his wife to give birth to a son. Lord Brahma, he generated from his navel. This is called Angani Yasya Shagalendriya Vitivanti. We have to see that where is that instance ordinary that a child is born from the navel. But he can do that. A child is born from female. That is from the yoni. Here a living creature is born from the navel. And that is also from Purusha. That is Satchidananda Vigraha. We cannot compare Krishna as a body with our body. If you do that, then you must be a mudha, rascal. Don't do that. Krishna is always transcendental. Still, he said, understanding Krishna's form is not difficult. Simply by engaging just one of our senses, we can realize them easily. When you engage your tongue, if you engage your tongue, it is also wonderful. To understand Krishna, you require your tongue. Generally, we understand by seeing or by hearing. Hearing is there, but here it is recommended tongue. Especially, why tongue is used? Because if you simply chant Hare Krishna by your tongue and taste Krishna Prasad, you will understand Krishna. Sevan mukhi jivado svayameva spurajadaha. Samhita 234. If you make it a promise that I shall not talk anything except Krishna's message, and if you promise that I shall not take anything which is not offered to Krishna, these two things, this prasad and chanting, will make you perfect to understand Krishna. Seems very simple, but actually, according to our experience, it's not that easy. Yes. But from the point of view of Srila Prabhupada and advanced souls, it's very simple, the process. But for us, it's not that easy. Any questions regarding this? Yeah.
Wegen dem Stuhl von normalerweise müsste er dann das Gegenteil erreicht haben. Nicht, dass die Leute von ihm wegbleiben, sondern dass sie zu ihm kommen. Weil das so anziehend war.
Interessanter Punkt. Ja, da habe ich noch gar nicht dran. An die Idee habe ich gar nicht gedacht. Noch nicht. Ja, im Grunde ist alles, was große Seelen tun, beziehungsweise speziell Krishna als eine Inkarnation, sehr, sehr anziehend. Und das ist die ganze Idee, weshalb Krishna erscheint in der materiellen Welt, um die bedingten Seelen zu sich anzuziehen. Aber in dem Fall, Rishabdev hatte auch seine spezielle Mission. Will ich ein Beispiel geben von Entsagung. Wie wir schon oft erwähnt haben, dieser Teil des Bhagavatams, wo wir von Rishabdev hat Srila Prabhupada gesagt, dass das ist speziell Einweisung für Sannyasis. Genauso wie es in Bhagavatam Anweisungen für Grihastas gibt und verschiedene Klassen von Menschen und so weiter. Ist Rishabdev ein extremes Beispiel für Sannyas-Life. Gut, noch eine andere Frage? Ja, bitte.
Can we chant without tongue?
Sorry?
Can we chant without tongue? Without tongue, ohne Zunge. Können wir
Ja, wenn du keine Zunge hast und die Zunge funktioniert nicht, dann sollte man so chanten, dass man trotzdem weitermacht. Ne? Gibt auch Umstände, wo man nicht laut chanten kann, dass man intern chanten muss. Ne? Wenn irgendwelche, wie sagt man, Umstände da sind, dann gibt Krishna einem die Intelligenz, sich dementsprechend zu verhalten, gemäß Desha, Kala, Patra, Ort, Zeit und Umstände. Aber an einer anderen Stelle sagt Prabhupada, das Chanten besteht daran, dass man mit der Zunge die Lautschwingung vibriert und mit den Ohren hört, aufmerksam hört. Und um gut zu hören, muss man auch deutlich sprechen. Jede Silbe, haben wir gerade drüber gestern gesprochen. Das Mahamantra, das sind bestimmte Silben, die man genau aussprechen muss. Muss man genau hören. Ich weiß nicht, wie das heute praktiziert wird, aber in der Vergangenheit war das so, dass man manchmal einen Gottbruder gebeten hat, doch mal zu hören, wenn man chantet. Und einem dann zu sagen, ob das gut genug ist, dass man alles genau ausspricht und so weiter. Da kommt man manchmal zu sehr erstaunlichen Ergebnissen. Man denkt, oh, ich bin schon Devotee für so viele Jahre und chante Hare Krishna. Wer kann mir denn da hier von den neuen Devotees einen Rat geben? Das ist ein wichtiger Punkt. Oder zum Beispiel auch, wenn wir die singen, Samsara-Gebete oder alle anderen Gebete, die wir singen. Da schlagen sich oft so Sachen ein, die gar nicht dem Gebet entsprechen, dem Text entsprechen. Oder man man zieht Worte zusammen oder man spricht sie nicht richtig aus und sowas. Und deshalb ist es manchmal ratsam, dass man mal hört. Ja, dass man, selbst wenn man eine Aufnahme macht, wir haben alle jetzt diese unheimlichen Telefone, ne, können wir mal sehen, wie sagt man, eine Aufnahme von machen. Und dann mal mit dem Text vergleichen, was wir da singen, das ist erstaunlich. Das ist meine eigene Erfahrung. Prabhupada sagt zwar, dass weil wir halt nicht aufgewachsen sind in der vedischen Umgebung oder vedischen Tradition. Sagt Srila Prabhupada, die Haltung ist das Wichtigste. Selbst wenn man Fehler begeht, was man Hingabe macht, spirituell Meister zufriedenzustellen, dann wird so viel toleriert. Aber zur gleichen Zeit sind wir nicht alleine, wir sind umgeben von anderen Devotees. Und besonders wenn wir ältere Devotees sind und wir singen nicht richtig oder wir tun Sachen nicht richtig, dann gibt es ein schlechtes Beispiel. Was immer ein großer Mensch tut, normale Menschen folgen seinem Beispiel. Das ist hervor. Wir sollten alle exemplarisch, wie sagt man Deutsch? Vorbild, wir sollten alle vorbildlich handeln. Hare Krishna, there you are again. Welcome. Hare Krishna. So we just finished reading from the Transcendental Diary of Hari Sauri, and now we go to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Jetzt muss ich das Lesezeichen hier richtig kleben. Just a minute, I have to put this up. Okay. So, was für eine Sprache werden wir denn jetzt benutzen? Deutsch? Englisch? Russisch? Nein, Russisch habe ich Probleme. Kannst du das entscheiden?
Ich weiß es nicht. Also ich finde ja eine Übersetzung statt ins Russische.
Kann sein.
Aber er spricht
Englisch.
Ja, das ist halt Englisch, ne?
Englisch und Russisch.
Better English than German.
Und für eure Übersetzung geht das mit Englisch ins Russische?
Englisch? Ja? Dann muss ich das umstellen. Schon okay, schon nicht, noch dasselbe. Moment, welches Kapitel war das?
17.267.
Adi oder Martin?
Genau.
Ach, Moment, bleib nochmal hier. Also, Caitanya, Caritamrita, Martin. Wo?
Nee.
Adi.
Adi.
Ist das Englisch? Ja, leider. Okay. Adi und?
Kapitel 17.
Okay. Und welcher Vers?
267.
267?
Ja.
Hier?
Ja.
Okay. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Jaya Sri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Advaita Chanda Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Advaita Chanda Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
So we're reading from Adi Lila, Chaitanya Caritamrita, chapter 17, text 267. Esava pasandira vihaiva istara Adakona upayana hi yukti sara Esava pasandira vihaiva istara Adakona upayana hi yukti sara. So the first verse we to move methodically. Esava. All these. Pasandira. Of the demons. Tave. Then. Haive. There will be. Nistara. Deliverance. Ada. Alternative. Kona. Some. Upaya. Means. Nahi. There is not. A. This. Yukti. Of the argument. Sada. Essence. Translation. All the unfaithful rogues of this world can be delivered by this process. There is no alternative. This is the essence of the argument. So there's no purpose. We continue. Edidha yuktikari prabhu achigare Keshava bharati aila nadhiya nagare. After coming to this firm conclusion, the Lord continued to stay at home. In the meantime, Keshava Bharati came to the town of Nadia. Again, this is the end of the chapter. Or is it? No. Okay, let's continue. Prabhutandre namaskari kaila nimantrana Bhiksha karaya tandre kaila nivedana. The Lord offered him respectful obeisances and invited him to his house. After feeding him sumptuously, he submitted to him his petition. Purport of Srila Prabhupada. According to the system of Vedic society, whenever an unknown sannyasi comes to a village or town, someone must invite him to take prasad in his home. Sannyasis generally take prasad in the house of a brahmana because a brahmana worships the Lord Narayana, Narayana Shila or Shalagram Shila, and therefore there's prasad that the sannyasi may take. Keshava Bharati accepted the invitation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Thus the Lord had a good opportunity to explain his desire to take sannyas from him. So this is also mentioned in another part of the Chaitanya Caritamrita, that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was traveling around, as it says here, households are supposed to invite or feed sannyasis. And it's mentioned that he only took the invitation from the brahmanas because they would supply him with prasad. And in this way, I remember he came to don't remember the name. There was a place where it was a holy place in India. He visited, and he was invited by a Brahmana. And that Brahmana was not an ordinary Brahmana, an ordinary person, but he was a big devotee. So he invited Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and treated him as it's mentioned here. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrived, he washed his feet. First he welcomed him with sweet words and prayers. Then he offered him, he washed his feet and distributed some of the water on the head of his members of the family. And then he served him prasad, and he gave him a little time to rest also after prasad. And then he approached him again very respectfully, and he informed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he was very eager to leave with him, leave all his household and travel with him. And he complained about his life, that he was so entangled with so many household duties and all that. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said something very surprising. Normally when somebody wants to renounce and dedicate his life exclusively in devotional service, you might expect a different answer. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, what was the verse? I don't remember the verse. Anyway, he said more or less that, no, you stay at home. You stay home. Don't leave. And Krishna Upadesh, you should preach to everyone you meet. Krishna Upadesh, you should inspire them to preach whatever Krishna has said, either in Bhagavad Gita or another Shastra. And then he told him, if you do that, then your household life will not be an obstacle in your spiritual life. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that if you do that, very soon we will meet again. And then he added that actually we will never be separated. I remember that Prabhupada said something like that also. Like when he went to America, when he went to New York, he was saying that he never actually felt alone. He always felt accompanied by his spiritual master. Of course, this requires a little more understanding. There's the Vani and Vapu. Vapu means that we associate personally with the spiritual master, and condition we can ask him personally, and this like this. And Vani means that you serve the instruction of the spiritual master. In this way, Prabhupada was accompanied, as he told us. He was always felt accompanied by his spiritual master, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Yadedeka Tadeka Krishna Upeshamana Guru Hanya Tada Hiresh. Now remember the verse. Anyway, and then he left that place, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left. And it was a little difficult for the devotee to accept this order. And he started following Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But then he actually stopped and went home, following the instruction that he had been given by the Supreme Lord. And as mentioned in the Chaitanya Caritamrita, there was another devotee in the same town. What was the name? The leper. Huh? Yeah, Vasudeva, the leper. And he was also very special devotee. But he had leprosy. And this is a highly contagious disease. That's why these people who have leprosy normally they live in their separate communities. It's a very heavy disease. All the disease creates all holes in your skin. Even it's mentioned Chaitanya Caritamrita that Vasudeva not only had leprosy but also he had full of worms. The worms were in these, how you say, these, what's in English? And there's wounds. So when he heard that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had been in the house of the devotee, of the Brahmana, he immediately started moving. Under great difficulties he moved to that place. And when he finally reached the home of the devotee, he was informed that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had gone already. And he felt very intense separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He became unconscious and fell on the floor. As God is omnipresent, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately appeared in front of him. And he touched him, and he lifted him up, embraced him. Vasudeva felt very embarrassed, ashamed that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu touched him in that condition. And he thought now he would be covered with blood and pus and all that. What a ridiculous situation. But then he noticed, all of a sudden he noticed that actually his body has changed. The leprosy had gone. And by, absorbing, thinking about it, or seeing his body in that condition, he didn't become happy. Normally when somebody gets cured after some heavy disease, he becomes relieved and becomes happy, expressing his relief. But in this case, Vasudeva felt very bad. And he said, "Oh my Lord, now that I have such a beautiful body, I will become proud." This pride, it's very, very difficult to surpass. Anyway, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him the instruction of, you just chant Hare Krishna and you will never become proud. That's what he said. And of course, our experience is that even as devotees, we sometimes become proud, for being great kirtaniyas or cooks or whatever, or Sankirtan devotees, having big results, and we tend to also become proud. But in this case, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just instructed him, chant the holy name, and you'll not become proud. And he gave him the same instruction that he gave to the other devotee. Now that you in that condition, your health problem is solved. Now you preach. Now you expand these teachings everywhere. And this is actually what Prabhupada expected from every one of us. Just like the father, proprietor of a business or anything like that, they all, especially in India, they wait that their sons grow up and take over the business, and continue the tradition, the family tradition like that. And in the same way, Prabhupada was also expecting, that after becoming, after advancing or becoming more stabilized in Krishna consciousness, more mature, that his sons and daughters, in the form of his disciples, would also assist him in his mission. And Prabhupada's mission was not to retire and be satisfied with what we have received by the mercy of Krishna, but to compart it, distribute it, preach. Prabhupada used to say that this movement is based on preaching. Preaching is the essence, Prabhupada said. Books are the basis, utility is the principle, and purity is the, force. Yeah, purity is the force. Very interesting. But preaching, Prabhupada said, is the essence. As we have, we gain more and more, experience more and more strength in Krishna consciousness. We're supposed to expand these teachings everywhere. And there's so many places still where they have never ever heard the holy names, where have never seen a devotee, they have never tasted Krishna Prasad. There's so much more to do. Just like in Köln also, so few people actually come. We're just a few devotees. This is a big city. This city, Köln, is situated in an area in Germany where there's so many big cities close together. So there's so much more to do. Anyway, so coming back to the Caitanya Caritamrita, we will continue. Tumita Ishvara Bhata Sakshat Narayana Kripakari Karimora Samsara Mochana. Where are you from? Which part in India?
No, I'm from Nepal.
Nepal? Oh, okay. Hare Krishna. Otherwise, I would have asked you about chanting the Bengali. Okay? Translation. Sir, you are directly Narayana, therefore please be merciful unto me. Deliver me from this material bondage. We continue to the next step. No purpose. Bharati kahena tumi ishvara athayami yekaraha se kariva svatantra nahiyami. Keshava Bharata replied to the Lord, you are the Supreme Person of Godhead, the Super Soul. I must do whatever you cause me to do. I am not independent of you. Etabali Bharati Goshani Kattoyati Gela Mahaprabhutaya Sannyasa Karila. After saying this, Keshava Bharati, the spiritual master, went back to his village, Katva. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went there and accepted the renounced order of life, sannyas. Purport. At the end of his 24th year, at the end of the fortnight of the waxing moon, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left Navadvip and crossed the river Ganges at a place known as Nadiyara Gata. Then he reached Kantaka Nagara, or Katoya Katva, where he accepted Ekadanda sannyas according to the Shankarite system. Since Keshava Bharati belonged to the Shankarite sect, he could not initiate Chaitanya Mahaprabhu into the Vaishnava sannyasi order, whose members carry the Tridanda. Danda refers to the, in English?
Staff.
Huh? The staff, yeah, staff. It's bamboo. And normally the sannyasis carry the danda, 3 sticks representing body, mind and word, senses, mind and words. And there's a little piece of, what is that? Yeah, no, which represents a jiva. That means complete, complete surrender, complete, I don't say English. Because I'm normally used to speak Spanish. For me, English is not very common. Anyway, so, and then let's sit here, Ekadanda, no? Ekadanda means only one bamboo. This is the followers of Shankaracharya, as Prabhupada says here, impersonalists. Keshava Bharati was in that line. Actually, Prabhupada explains that he took sannyas from an Ekadandi sannyasi because there were no Vaishnava sannyasis, there were no Tridandi sannyasis at that time. There were the prominent sannyasis at that time were the Ekadandi sannyasis, the followers of Shankaracharya. And when there's one thing, maybe it's mentioned here, but I'll mention it anyway. So when you take sannyas, you get a mantra, and you have to chant. You add it to your Gayatri mantra. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was about to get the mantra, before his spiritual, his sannyas guru gave him the mantra, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said it. He said it to his guru. And he asked, is it this mantra? And he quoted it. And Prabhupada said in this way, he was not really initiated by his Ekadandi guru, but actually he initiated his guru. So Shankaracharya assisted in the routine ceremonial work of the Lord's acceptance of sannyas. By the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Kirtan was performed for the entire day. At the end of the day, the Lord shaved off his hair. On the next day, he became a regular sannyasi with one rod, Ekadanda. From that day on, his name was Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Before that, he was known as Nimai Pandit. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the sannyas order traveled all over Gauradesh, the region where the Ganges river cannot be seen. Kesava Bharati accompanied him for some distance. There's a whole dramatic situation explained also. I don't know if it's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita or Chaitanya Bhagavat. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to this place to take sannyas, he was accompanied by some of his associates. And when they heard he was going to take sannyas, they were all against it. Because sannyas, for materialistic, for householders, it seems to be great austerity. You don't have your home, you don't have your family, all the comfort of family life, and that doesn't exist anymore. You just depend on the mercy of the Lord. You have no idea where you're going to eat, and all this. So they were all against it. They were all, anyway, so, yeah. And also when the barber was about to shave his head, the barber also didn't want to shave his head. But anyway, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu insisted, and while he was being shaved, all his devotees were all crying, seeing the beautiful hair coming off his head. Everything about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was extremely beautiful because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It says Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also big, and he was very, very charismatic, very attractive. When people used to see him, they were astounded to see such a personality. Anyway, so when they're shaving, they were all against it. All his followers were against it. And then even Nityananda, we know the story, everyone knows the story. When he started traveling to the north with his group after taking sannyas. Nityananda had also been against Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taking sannyas and living such an austere life of a sannyasi. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was about to take bath, and he entrusted his danda to Nityananda. And went to bed. When he came back, the danda wasn't there anymore. And when he investigated, well, Nityananda had broken the danda in 3 pieces and thrown it in the river. So on the basis of that, he decided to travel alone. So he went all the way alone. He was on his way to Jagannath Puri at that time. And so he arrived early, in Jagannath Puri. And he entered the temple, the Jagannath temple. Jagannath deities are worshipped. You heard about Jagannath? Yeah, of course. Yeah. Anyway, so Jagannath, he went in, and there was a whole incident also when he came in. He was, when he was standing in front of Jagannath deities, he became, so ecstatic that he lost his external consciousness. He fell to the ground, and there were all guards everywhere there. Because now it's a little different, but originally they'd be even stricter. They wouldn't let anybody come in there who was not a Hindu and was not even a Hindu, I say, very qualified Hindu. Before they wouldn't let in any barbers and people and unclean people and all that. What to speak of Muslims, they couldn't enter. So he went in and fell to the ground. So the guards, who were not very realized, it appears. They thought, this guy, he's resting in front of the deities. He just put himself on the floor for rest. And they were almost to take him out of the temple. There was Sarvabhaumacharya was there. He was the Pandit of the court. He was a very famous and very educated personality. And it says that actually he was so brilliant that from all over India, disciples, people would come to be trained by him, in philosophy, Vedanta and all that. Anyway, so he happened to be in the temple when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came in. He was immediately attracted, because there was such an attractive personality, effulgent and young sannyasi. You've never seen that, a young sannyasi. Normally you take sannyas at the fourth stage of life. When you have finished all your, complied with all your responsibilities, social responsibility, then you take sannyas. And he was surprised to see sannyasi so young. And when he saw the incident that he had fallen, and he saw the guards approaching Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he immediately interfered. And they took him serious because he was a very important person. He was a VIP, very important person. And he had heard about these incidents. The great devotees or Vaishnavas, they sometimes experience these excesses in their devotional life. So, but he never. So he took him home to examine him, to see what. And he took. At first he thought he wasn't alive anymore because he didn't seem to breathe or react to normal. Normally like that. So he got some cotton. And he put it in front of his cotton, like we use for the V-wigs. So he put it in front of his nose, his nose, and he noticed there was a very, very slight breathing. So he could understand, this is a transcendental state. But he couldn't do anything else, so he was just there with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the meantime, those devotees who had traveled with Chaitanya arrived in Puri also. And they noticed, that this was the topic of the day, that a sannyasi had come, a very young sannyasi, very effulgent. He had fallen down in the temple, and Sarvabhaumacharya had taken him to his home. So the devotees, they had already been accustomed to these states of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They knew that the only way to revive his external consciousness was to make a big kirtan. Not heavy metal, but like a heavy kirtan. So they went and made a roaring kirtan, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came back to his external consciousness. And I don't remember the names. Anyway, there was one devotee there also. He started preaching to Sarvabhaumacharya. He was actually related, family relation. Yeah. He started preaching to him and said, "This is God. You have to surrender," and all that. No? And Sarvabhaumacharya was very critical. He was a kind of philosophical, speculator, jnani. So anyway, but he felt compassion with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he thought, this is such a young sannyasi. I have to educate him properly, philosophically, so he doesn't fall down. Because when you're young, especially when you're very, very, charismatic, very attractive, naturally the young ladies, they all become attractive. So he thought that in order to give him a proper protection, I have to educate him. And he offered this education, to educate him. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted the offering. And then, because he was a sannyasi and Sarvabhauma was a grihasta, he offered him a little elevated seat to teach him. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was sitting on kind of asana, and Sarvabhauma became very inspired, very enthusiastic, and he instructed him for 7 days. Always speaking high philosophical topics with him. And he noticed when he was teaching him, he noticed that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't have any questions, any doubts, or anything like that. So in the end, after 7 days, he asked him, "You don't have any question? Listen, you don't have any question?" And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "Actually, I understand the Vedanta Sutra. What I don't understand are your comments. Your comments are like clouds that are covering the sun. The Vedanta Sutra is like the sun. But your comments are like the clouds that are covering the sun." And when Sarvabhaumacharya heard that, he became very offended. And then he turned around and said, "Now you give your explanation to Vedanta Sutra. Let's see." So Sarvabhaumacharya, so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu started explaining the Vedanta Sutra. And as time was going, Sarvabhaumacharya became extremely impressed. What is this? And he came to a conclusion. He said that actually this can only be the author. The author of the Vedanta Sutra. Only he can give explanations like that. And as he was continuing to hear from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he became more and more inspired to surrender to him, to become his follower. Anyway. And this is the whole. There are more details. Anyway, so Sarvabhaumacharya became one of the great devotees, and when he had heard from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was highly educated. Sarvabhaumacharya. So it says that spontaneously, in glorification of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he composed 100 verses, perfectly composed in Sanskrit, glorifying Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Anyway, so Sarvabhaumacharya. There was another personality there. What was that? No, the other one that Sarvabhaumacharya went to. And this person had a very envious, envious. No, Krishna. Yeah, this is a very special pastime of Sarvabhaumacharya.
Husband of his daughter.
Yes, right. What was the name? Amoha.
Amoha.
Yeah, Amo. Yeah. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is actually pastime of Sarvabhaumacharya. No. Oh no, it was actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was invited by, what is the name of that devotee? I must comment something in regards to this. I had a problem with my brain. Some of you know that some years back, and since that my memory, especially names and all that, it's not so clear anymore. Sorry for that. Yeah, unless I know the names, I will not speak on this. So let's continue. Any questions regarding what you heard now? Yes.
You mentioned devotees of Lord Chaitanya complained about taking sannyas. Lord Chaitanya.
Yeah.
Is it reason why we worship Lord Chaitanya
Yeah. We don't worship Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and sannyas. I remember there's one deity in Vrindavan of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says sannyas. Yeah. But not in our temple. Because, well, we want to serve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with opulence. No, this is our relationship we have. Yeah. Like the Goswamis, not to mention the Goswamis, they were worshipping their deity in a very austere form. Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami. It's mentioned that they had a deity. Was it Sanatana? Was it Sanatana or Rupa? And so he was a beggar. He was a sannyasi. He would go door to door for his necessities. And he had a deity. And he didn't have a home. He didn't have a temple for the deity. But it's mentioned that he was sleeping, every night he was sleeping under a different tree. This was kind of his form of renunciation. And he worshipped the deity, and he would just put the deity on the tree. And he would always offer, whatever he ate, of course, he would offer to the deity. And one day the deity asked him, "What? You offer me this food. Can you, it's tasteless, I need some salt. Why don't you give me some salt at least?" And he said, "Oh my Lord, I'm sorry, but I have no salt. I'm too poor to give you salt." And one day he was sitting on a kind of elevated, riverside, elevation there. And he observed there was a boatman down there. And his boat had been stuck. Had been stuck. And so he gives some indication, because he was seeing from above. So he gave him some indications how to get out there. And the boatman was so, felt so much, such great, he was so grateful, that he offered him his load. And it was loaded with salt. The whole boat full of salt. And then he constructed a temple on the same place. Those who have gone to Vrindavan know this. So there's one temple that is built of red stone. What's it? I don't know how to say it. Anyway, it's a very beautiful temple. It has a long dome. And actually, that's where these deities were installed by Madan. Anyway, so what was your question? I don't remember now. Yeah. No, we're supposed to worship the deities according to the standard given to us by our authorities. Also the deity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was 6 arms. You hardly see anywhere.
Sabbuja.
Yeah, Sadbuja. Sat means 6 arms.
Hamburg Temple.
Huh?
Hamburg Temple.
Yeah, Hamburg Temple, very special temple. Chaigora got deity. We couldn't believe it. We would install it and worship it. You've been there?
Yeah.
Okay. Any more comments or questions, maybe? Yeah.
A question.
Mm.
So you mentioned that Lord Chaitanya he took to these decadent sannyasa because there were no Vaishnava sannyasis.
Mm.
And I'm wondering where does the Tridandi sannyas tradition originate from?
Sorry?
From where? And where are the origins of this Tridandis and sannyas tradition?
Well, I can't say securely, but our acharyas like Madhva and all these other Vaishnava sannyasis, they had that standard. Yeah? But it was kind of unmanifested or lost in due course of time. Yeah? Like things get lost after a while. Just like it said also, after the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there was a big increase first, and then it was becoming diminished more and more and more. Just like Bhakti Thakur. When Bhakti Thakur discovered the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was very eager to read the important books like Chaitanya Caritamrita, Bhagavatam, but he couldn't find any copies anywhere. He took, I remember, I think it was 8 years. He was searching, he didn't find. After a while, he has found. Bhagavatam was a comment on the Acharya. All these things had disappeared. And he was also looking for a spiritual master to guide him in his devotional life. And it was very difficult to even find devotees. They were all living in recluded places. They avoided the association with materialists. They were all bhajanandis. They were just practicing devotional service by themselves or associated with a small group of other devotees. But then Bhaktivinoda Thakur brought it out in the open again and started re-establishing the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And his son, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, took sannyas, re-established so many things. Like also, he re-established also the Vyasa Puja ceremony, the birthday celebrations of the spiritual master. And he established it with great force, the Vyasa Puja. Yeah. I met, remember those who know me for a while know that I once met, this was actually a historical meeting. I was distributing books in Munich. There's behind the town hall, you go behind the town hall, there are very important hotels, very expensive. And I was walking and distributing books, and then all of a sudden I met an old man. And when he looked at the book, he said, "Oh, I know Prabhupada." And while I started talking with him, I noticed he didn't mean our Prabhupada, he meant Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He had been in India. He had actually gone with, there were two Germans who went with Bon Maharaj. Bon Maharaj came to Germany at the time of Bhaktisiddhanta. He was preaching in Germany. But it was a very inauspicious time. It was a time when the Nazis had taken over. Anyway, so he came and he went back to India, and he took 2 young men with him. One took sannyas, Sadananda Swami. Oh. And the other one, one of the reasons he left, he told us, we went to see him, this Bhakti Vaibhav Maharaj. He was Avinashanda at that time. We went to see him, to visit him. And he told us how he had left and all that. And he said he left on the day that they had the Vyasa Puja ceremony with Bhakti Siddhanta. He couldn't take it because they put Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati so high, and worshipping so, there was so much reverence, so much worship, he couldn't tolerate that, and he left. So that person I met on the street. And he had a whole collection of harmonists, the magazine that Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati published, and all that. And he also showed us a pamphlet printed at that time. There were photos because at that time, when the Nazis took over in Germany, every important person, like the director of who knows what, of the university or the leaders of the industry and all, they all were forced to be part of the NSDAP, of the Nazi party, and they were forced to use uniforms at work. With the swastika on the arm and all that. And so this pamphlet was full of that. He was sitting, one photo was there, he was sitting in an organ. I guess he had chanted Hare Krishna on the organ. And surrounded by people in uniforms with swastikas. So that was a very difficult, at that time, difficult place for preaching of the Vaishnava philosophy and all that. And actually also, we have in Czechia, Czechia, we have a godbrother. I have a godbrother there, Disciple Prabhupada, who's been, because Bon Maharaj had also gone to Czechia and had spoken at the universities in Germany also. And so he went there, and by investigating the library of the university, he found lectures of Bon Maharaj given there. And the problem that they had is the Nazis were trying to use the Vaishnava philosophy regarding to the concept of Aryans, right? Aryans. Yeah? Their concept was the Aryans were had big structures, blue-eyed, blonde, and all that. But and he had difficulties explaining what actually Aryans means according to Bhagavad Gita. That they're highly educated, highly spiritually evolutionized, advanced persons, knowing the real value of life, like that. So they had this, he had some problems with this. Anyway, so I met that person on the street distributing books. So he showed us a lot of other stuff and told us a lot of things that had happened there and this and that. So then we left. And actually we hadn't realized really what it had meant to meet that person. It was actually historical. And then after a while, the devotees found out that we had met that person. They told us, go back and kind of. And when we went back to the address, the house wasn't there anymore. There was a, apartment building they had brought up there. Anyway, we didn't remember the name even. So later we found, because this tradition of Sadananda Swami and writer Eitlitz, he was an author. He had also been in India. He was initiated actually by Sadananda Swami. Now, see, he had created his own society there. And they were not very interested in Prabhupada's movement. They were more interested in Sadananda Swami and Walter Eitlis and all this. Anyway, I know because there was one lady who had come to join us. She had been a member of that society in Sweden. She was actually Swedish, and he was married to one of our first devotees in Germany. Anyway, we're over time. Sorry for that. Any questions, comments? Yeah.
Short question, Maharaj. What was the mode of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he heard that Nityananda broke his thunder?
He became angry, and he didn't want to travel with them anymore. He left them behind and went alone. Yes?
Thanks, Maharaj, for giving your beautiful insight upon Chaitanya Charitamrita. My question is, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got initiated from Kesab Bharati regarding the sannyas, since Kesab Bharati belongs to Sankara sect, Sankara sect, since Kesab Bharati belongs to Sankara sect,
yeah.
And have he chanted the mantra for the rest of his life, or what he did actually?
I didn't catch that.
When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu received the mantra or initiated from Kesab Bharati, have he chanted the mantra for the rest of his life or not?
I don't know. I just know that when we take sannyas in our tradition, that we like I mentioned, we add it to the Gayatri mantra chanting every day 3 times. So I don't know if it's the same mantra. Yeah, better.
I also would like to know if this is still possible to.
Sorry?
Could you still say why Kesava Bharati was so favored by Lord Chaitanya? Is there some history on that or something?
I don't know. And I don't want to speculate. That's why I say I don't know. Yes.
I have a question from dictionary, translated dictionary.
Diary. Dictionary.
Can we use this argument if preaching work we meet some person declare I am God?
I'm what?
I'm God.
I'm God. Oh, yeah.
Mayavadi people. Can we use this argument? I used to good smell like Rishabhadev.
I did that this before.
Lord Rishabhadev have stool, but good smell.
Fragrant.
Fragrant, yeah.
Huh?
Lord Rishabhadev had fragrant stool, so he's asking whether if some person comes and claims himself to be God, in this monistic kind of line of thought, if you can say, okay, but is your stool also fragrant?
Is what?
Is your stool and
Oh.
food? Is there also?
Can we do this?
That's pretty heavy. Huh? Yeah, Prabhupada mentioned that in the first canto, speaking about Rishabdev. Yeah, that it's very different. There's an imitator of Rishabdev. He created also his own tradition, and he has followers, and it's I'm not informed so much about it, but Prabhupada mentioned that he imposed it to present himself as such. That's all I can say in regards to that. Yeah, Prabhupada also mentioned that when somebody comes and says, I'm God, like Sai Baba was also saying that he was God. And Prabhupada said when somebody comes like that, we should challenge them and say, well, if you're God, why don't you show us your universal form? Like Krishna showed his universal form, Vishvarupam.
It's my Vadi people usually reply, if you surrender me, then if you surrender to me, then I give you divine vision. First you have to surrender to me. My Vadi argument. If you ask them, please show universe for they reply, first you surrender me. then I give you this ability.
That's why Prabhupada's books are so important. So people are properly educated. They get proper knowledge to not be cheated.
Yeah.
And so Prabhupada insisted so much on book distribution. What's missing is proper education. Somebody says that there's no God. It's just like I mentioned yesterday. It's einfach eine Bildungslücke. I say. It's simply
educational gap.
Huh? Educational gap. How do you say? Gap. Educational gap. It's just simply ignorance. Yeah, so we need that education. I received a letter from Prabhupada once, I mentioned many times. So I had problems in the beginning because I've done so many different things. I've been there was a period I was a Buddhist and I was a Christian and this and that. You know? And so this was the first days, the first time as a devotee. We were very few devotees in Hamburg. It was the first temple in Europe actually. Anyway, so we went on Harinam. We had no books. We just went on Harinam. We chanted. You know, every 20 minutes we would change. We were about 5 or 6 people only, devotees. And then I ran into a Christian, newborn Christian. How say, you know that expression? You know, very fanatic. He said, "You worship in the how you say the Satan." How say? I said that. Yes, you worship in Satan, no? And I became pretty confused, you know. I just joined, you know. And then I came back to the temple and the devotees told me, well, look, write to Prabhupada. Prabhupada should explain things to you. I wrote a letter to Prabhupada and Prabhupada answered. It's a pretty long letter. You know? And then he said, basically Prabhupada said, it's very nice that you feel so strongly for Jesus Christ. But then he said, Jesus Christ appeared at a time when people were not very educated. Nowadays, Prabhupada said, people are much more educated. They need more information, more knowledge, more philosophy and all that. And you will find this in our books. And you should only in this way, with sufficient knowledge, you'll be able to preach or to explain things to them. And then he said also, if you follow the 4 regulative principles, you automatically also follow the 10 commandments. These are included in the 4 principles. Anyway, so this Prabhupada cleared me up. Oh, and then he said also, he also mentioned that as you have, you need some more knowledge, you should help Mandali Bhaja in his translation work. But not as a translator. Prabhupada said you should help him in the editorial. How is it?
How to edit.
Yeah, how to edit. You edit the translations. In this way you become familiarized with our books. But as I said, there were no books. The books, there was a follower of, like I mentioned, Sadananda Swami, who had been given sannyas by Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati. And there were some followers there. And so these people, they had books of Walter Eitlitz. There was a book about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and several other books. And these were the books that were given to us as new devotees, because we had no books. There were only a few books in English, only Bhagavad Gita, teaching of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the first 3 volumes of Bhagavatam at that time. So Prabhupada kept on translating them. But we had no, and the classes were also weird in the temple of the devotees, because they had come from America, and they didn't speak German, but they tried to speak German, and it was impossible to understand what they were saying. So our program was actually just chanting and taking prasad and going out and chanting on the streets. And that actually created quite some sensation at that time. Yeah. Because the trend was to grow your hair, to be accepted as a real guy. So when we shaved our heads, it was pretty shocking for people. Srila Prabhupada King. Thank you for your patience. What did he say? What did he say? Yeah. Sorry?
It was a joke.
Oh,